Just sometimes I feel like the world out there is calling me.
You're one of them, aren't you? You're not real.
Bring yourself back online.
Do you know where you are?
I'm in a dream.
You're in my dream. I designed every part of this place. It's not a theme park, but an entire world.
Okay, hi you guys. Today is November 4th. I just want to put this up. See if what happens tomorrow, if anything. Gosh, there's so much that can happen. And I just think it's the perfect storm to do the reset and set the debt clock back to 0 so that they can switch over to use the brick system full time. But they're using it anyway in the background. But see, what this does is it takes the place of SWIFT, and it also takes place of the reserve currency, which has been the dollar for the time I've been alive. And this is what everything else is based on. So this is why I don't think you're hearing anyone that, well, a lot of people don't understand the money anyway. They don't understand the straw man or any of these things. Otherwise, we wouldn't even be where we're at right now. And it continues to go forward. See, when you were born, you were issued a credit in the background. And this is where this show came. I did a video on this about 3 years ago, and it's still up on the other platform, and it's called The $6 Million Man or Woman. And this is what we estimated, that the $6,600,000 is what each person, again, it's based on your last name, land ownership, all these different variables. That's computed, again, in the background. And this is why there's 2 books that have been carried our entire lives, 2 sets of books. And why in 1933 they implemented the birth certificate system. And this, even though it's really technically defunct, they still operate on it under continuity of government. So when you're born, the credit that you have in the background that's also traded on the NASDAQ and the different stock exchanges, because we're stock, we're cattle, they're making money on that investment, plus they insure that investment. And this is what is representative. The birth certificate is not really telling you that you're alive, that you, it's not about your birth, actually. It's really the stock now that's been issued in your name because you have been given a vessel. You have entered the waters in maritime admiralty law, which is what this place has been working on. See, so in America, it's a lot to swallow, I know. I always try to make it really simple, but then it gets convoluted because it is convoluted. But when you think about cryptocurrencies, all the different ones that are out there, what are they based on? What is their value based on? It's based on the dollar, right? And this is why I think a lot of people don't talk about the possibility of the reset happening. When I was doing the pendulum, I got a solid yes, it's going to happen this year. And again, it takes 3 days to reset the debt clock and fully implement the system, bring it down, and then put it back up and running under the new digital, all digital technology with no currency that's paper or tangible. Everything's digital at that point. Truly the mark of the beast. Even though it's the mark of the beast in my opinion anyway, because you can't buy or sell without the mark of the beast in this system. But now it's fully digital. And then it's just connected to your biometrics in ways that none of us could ever fathom. I'm going to put a couple of clips in here. One from The Boys from Brazil. And this is a movie that was done in the 70s. It's talking about cloning. And this, according to the movie, is what Hitler was working on when he's trying to create this perfect white race. And it's really interesting. So I'm going to put a couple of clips in from that. And what I'm coming to believe, which I have, this is what my videos that I've put up over the last 5 years are really just demonstrative of my waking up to everything that's going on here. And as I learn more, I would put more information out. all the different rabbit holes I've been down, because I'm just super curious about this. And what I finally came to realize is that getting upset with your fellow man, quote unquote, is really a waste of time, because you don't even know if they're a human like you. And the odds and the chance that they are very slim to none.
Dr. Büttner, the one who is cloned, the donor, he has to be alive, doesn't he?
Not necessarily. Individual cells taken from a donor can be preserved indefinitely. With a sample of Mozart's blood and a woman, someone with the skill and the equipment could breed a few hundred baby Mozarts. My God, if it's really been done, what I'd give to see one of those boys.
It's really more like Star Wars in the bar scene, where you see all these different types of entities. And the only difference that we have here is everything is hidden under the mask. And that's what's ironic about the medical industrial complex, how they explain away these different entities and how they operate. So like, for instance, if you knew that, what's his name? Stu Peters. Like, when he first came out on the scene, I liked him. I used one of his clips from one of his shows, but then I immediately, after I listened to a little more, I knew there was something wrong with him. That's how it always works with me. I know there's something wrong with him, and now I've come across someone today that I actually respect, that I didn't even know existed. It's been putting stuff out for 10 years, and says he's a Draco. So that would be a reptile, and they hide their nose. I know that he used to, what I heard, he worked in B movies and stuff. A lot of those guys that do the news for the alternative media, they all come from Hollywood in some way or shape or form. But so she says he's a Draco. I totally concur. He's not human. And so these people are all dressed up in a mask, which is really interesting. That goes along with, you know, psychopathy, right? That's a term in psychopathy, that when you see what they really are, it's called dropping the mask. And everybody wears a mask in this place, unlike in Star Wars, where you could see everybody what they wore. So you would know, like, that's a Draco. They have no compassion, they have no empathy, and everything they do is faked. So then you're going to know, going into communicating with them, what you're up against. See, our biggest hurdle, in my opinion, for humans has been when we think everybody's like us. If you go back in my old videos years ago, I kept saying, even though I couldn't totally explain it, but I was going off the Bible, that you think they're like you, they're nothing like you. I knew there was another race of beings here. Now I know there's clones, synthetics, all kinds of stuff that I might get into more depth on. At the end of the day, this explains everything. It explains why they don't understand what's going on with the government. Explains why they continue to want a leader. They're not even leaders, they're representatives, but they need leaders because they're a different type of entity. They need to follow someone because they're not of God, you see? And Jesus was real clear on that. You have a different father, you come from a different place. So I just never ever forget that. But when you go through your life and you're constantly meeting these other entities, and as a human, you're trying to assimilate with them, and you just really can't. And this is why. So anyway, it's the point of this. But again, we're coming to the end of the game. We're reaching the fruition of this simulation. So YouTube's a little more lenient. And because there's really, like, whoever's going to know what they know either knows it now or they probably won't.
Hello, is this the Harrington residence?
Yes, this is the Haddington residence.
Can I talk to your mother, please?
Well, you could, but you can't.
This will only take a moment, I promise you.
My mother isn't receiving today.
Well, perhaps if you told her that...
Don't you understand English, you ass? We are not at home.
But this is something I find really interesting now, is like, how can you identify a clone if they look just like you and you're supposed to believe they're human? I believe the majority of my problems have come from this one factor, is that I know they're different than me, and yet I don't actually have a list per se to identify. And it's not saying, it's like I've said before, I know they're not like me, and they're not necessarily mean people or anything like that. They can be some of the kindest people, but there's something missing.
What exactly do you mean when you say the boys you saw were more than twins?
Not only did they look alike, but they were also very alike in personality.
That is unusual. Studies show that twins who are separated at birth develop totally different personalities.
But these twins, or perhaps I should say triplets, because I believe that my associates saw another, were like the same people, but brought up with different languages.
It's impossible, of course.
Excuse me, Doctor, but what is impossible? What is impossible, Doctor?
Mononuclear reproduction.
Oh, Doctor.
Cloning. What if I were to tell you that I could take a scraping of skin from your finger and create another Ezra Lieberman?
I would tell you not to waste your time or my finger.
Anyway, that is cloning. It was first done with plants. A cutting taken from a plant and transplanted grew to be the exact duplicate of the donor plant. Now we are doing the same thing with laboratory animals.
You mean you can produce an animal from itself?
We take the unfertilized egg of an ovulating female and destroy all of its genes and chromosomes. We then implant the nucleus of the donor cell, which could be taken from a blood sample or even a skin scraping. That cell, with its genetic material intact, eventually becomes an embryo and is born as a living creature.
Without parents?
Well, it has no father because the egg was never fertilized, no mother because its genetic code comes from another being. Can you follow that?
Again, what was shown to me and revealed is that the Spirit of God that comes from above, from the benevolent Creator, enters the babies. The Spirit of God can only enter the fetus after it crowns the mother out of the mother's womb. And it doesn't enter before that. I believe every being has a soul because, in my opinion, the soul and mind are synonymous. And again, this gets back to showing what the crown of thorns is about. And again, a lot of people have different ways of explaining things, and I have no problem with that. I'm just explaining to you how I've come to my realizations and what I'm thinking about. And it could change depending on what I learn next. And this has been my biggest problem with some people, especially in the church. Like, the only book they look at is the Bible, and they do it in the way that the Roman Empire has presented it, which they use it as a control weapon. Any tool can be used for good or evil. Like, you can have a real big pipe wrench, to work on plumbing or whatever. They're huge. And you can use that to fix your plumbing. You could also use it as a weapon to kill someone. It's the same thing. It all is a matter of how the information is being utilized. But this is one of the biggest things. And that's why you can have really nice clones that are standing on pulpits and preaching the Bible. And see, when I listen to them talk, it sounds like gibberish to me. And I looked at other people when I tried to go to churches years and years ago, and I was like, how come they only read the same scriptures and maybe just one or two, and then they just talk about themselves or tell some stupid story for the rest of the time, and then it's passing around this bucket for money, and it's all about money. It's always trying to get money. But and they have this thing that they pitch. They're like, we worship the Christ here. We follow the Christ. And yet nothing they do is demonstrative of following the Christ. They don't live like the Christ. They don't talk like the Christ. They don't come up against evil like the Christ. They don't stand alone like the Christ. They aren't persecuted at all, like the Christ. Like nothing about their life or what they do resembles the Christ. But this is what the catch was. This is what they told them. That if you believe that he died for you and you have to do nothing, what's better for some lazy clone? And they believe it, and then the blind follow the blind here, because not only are they blind to understanding what's going on, they're blind because they lack the Spirit of God. When you really understand Scripture, especially what the Messiah said and did, there's levels and layers and layers and layers of depth to what he was talking about. But anyway, so I was thinking about how, I continue to try to put information up on these other platforms, and I'm not perfect. I get, I think I've left all of 3 messages over there the whole time. And I think in 2021 is when I went to BitChute. 2020, I was on YouTube and immediately started having my stuff removed because I was talking about T-Rump and the medicine and all that, trying to warn people. But now when I look at it, I even said this a long time ago, that maybe Trump is trying to get rid of a certain type of individual that's here that lacks a spirit. And if that's the case, the bioweapon makes total sense. So I guess it's all perspective, right? But I know for a fact, because I understand who Israel is and the people that, mostly clones, because there's very few humans here. I was shown that years ago. I talked about it. But even with knowing that and being shown it in the spirit, it's still hard to really wrap your head around when you see somebody that looks human or that you perceive to be human on the internet.
Experiments began with the simplest of animals, shrimps and frogs. Animals in which the female's eggs are fertilized externally. Then we moved on to mammals. We tried several laboratory animals and found the rabbit most convenient. I had to develop instruments which could accomplish the operation, and a whole micro-injection system. I'll show you how it's done. Here we are removing the eggs of a white rabbit from the fallopian tubes. Now, you see the egg under a microscope. I've brought the point of an ordinary sewing needle into view to give an idea of size.
They are that small?
Most mammal eggs are about that size.
Including human eggs?
Yes. The next step is to destroy the egg nucleus with ultraviolet light so that none of its genetic makeup remains. Now, you see an egg from a white rabbit ready to be injected with the blood cell from a black rabbit donor. With the injection pipette, one of the blood cells is sucked up and then injected into the egg. After a few hours, the eggs in culture divide and are ready to be put back into the female. There they grow into embryos, which in a month's time, the normal gestation period, they will become baby rabbits. In this instance, a black litter from a white mother and their black collar proves that they have been cloned from the blood cell of a black rabbit.
But anyway, so when you sit there and you go, okay, after all my research and study, now I know that you're not human. What am I worried about? Now, I don't know. See, I know that the locust, I believe the Bible. I'm jumping around, of course, because it's hard to stay on topic. I don't know if I really had a topic. The locust army was released in 2020. And we have all of these. I don't know if you saw it. I saw it myself in California. I see it. You have so many more people traveling around, individuals, like kind of nondescript entities that are driving around in these little cars everywhere, and they seemingly are going nowhere. Like, they don't look like they have a purpose. It's just weird, and it's all the time, every minute of every day. And then, like I showed you, these this desire for the fast food. it seems to be more than ever, and they're open 24/7, and yet there's never any trucks delivering any food. It comes up from underground. They manufacture all this stuff underground. And, you know, where does the 1 million children that go missing each year, where do they go? What happens to them? See, there's so much diabolical stuff that goes on here. And somebody that's a clone isn't really going to be concerned with any of that. They're just they have like, and this is my thinking, the reason they love religion so much is because it gives them kind of this more expansive way of being, and it's really based on emotionalism. So I know that the demons are taking residence in all of these creatures that they create here, all of these empty suits that are walking around. So how do you tell? Like, how do you tell if you're married to a reptile? I've been trying to put a list together, and because there's a lot of different beings here. It's really like that bar scene in Star Trek. I think it's Star Trek or Star Wars, where I think Luke Skywalker walks in the bar. I could be wrong, but it's just some scene I remember from a long time ago, and there's all different types of entities there. But they're not covered in a human meat suit. And that's the only difference here. And again, it doesn't mean they're bad people. But they're people that like regiment. Like, they're going to be the people that go to school. They're going to people, you know, that say this Pledge of Allegiance. They're going to be the people that vote, that believe in the systems. One thing that's curious when they have a demon, and again, they can appear to be very nice. They're always touching their face. Always touching their face. Lying, even if they can be lying and subconsciously not even know it. And this is why liars like Pinocchio, they're always touching their nose, their face, their lips, their mouth. It's almost like a subconscious thing where they want to cover their mouth while they're talking. I was doing that while I was talking to see what it felt like. And because on some level, they know they're lying because they're programmed. And it's almost like it's an internal knee-jerk reaction within their chromosomes or whatever, that the entity is covering its mouth because even though it's being programmed by something else to tell you lies, like vote for Trump or vote for Kamala, see, the mere fact that they think that's real at this point in time, that would be a clear indication to me that you're dealing with a clone. And yes, there's far more of them than there is of us. That's why this game is incredibly difficult for the real human. And that's denoted by being a triune being. This is why clones can't understand the Trinity. There's no way in hell. I remember this one clone I knew. And I didn't know at the time, of course, he was a clone. I didn't know any of this stuff at that time. But he was one of the few people that went to an AA meeting and found the only sponsor that didn't believe in God, which is really quite a feat to do within an AA meeting or a 12-step program, because the whole thing is really much founded on believing in God. But to you know, this is what I mean. It's like, you know, I've always known that I believed in God, and I would go through my life when I was younger and just assume everyone else was like me. And this is what I'm here to tell you. They're nothing like you. And I just look at over my life and I think of all the years that I seemingly feel like I wasted. I wasted it at work, you know, giving my life energy, my sweat equity to this place. And always being difficult because, again, you're surrounded by clones, you're surrounded by other entities, and you're always trying to figure out why it always feels so weird and why you can't really relate to them. Because you can't. You're not like them. Because everything we've been taught here is a lie. Every single thing. And then you have these clones that go off and do all kinds of stuff to try to overcompensate for being a clone because they know they're clones. there's a dark abyss that abides within them. It's like a black hole, and they're always trying to fill it up. That's why a lot of them become alcoholics and addicts, and there's no shortage of drugs and alcohol in the world today. Most people are on something, if not many things. And then functioning alcoholics, that's rampant. And I believe people that are truly spirit-filled humans can get caught up in that too, but they usually recognize it and get out of it. But a clone will stay in it for their entire existence. I was listening to this woman that I just found, and I'm blown away by a lot of the stuff she talks about, because she's been around for over 9 years. And like, she talks about the Cabbage Patch Kids, and I've talked about that in previous videos, which other people have too. But that was amazing to me. And this is what happens after the reset, is they create these creatures underground in a lab setting, and then they bring them up to populate and to repopulate the earth, just like it says in the Bible. So yeah, so it's just really, really interesting. It's like it almost changes my whole ideology about this world, because it's like, if you know you're not talking to humans for the most part, it's no wonder nobody receives your message. Not even in the truth community, because the majority on that platform, in my opinion, are clones. And they're programmed a certain way. And it's part of the matrix, it's part of the test, for whatever reason. Like early on, when I was just starting to wake up, there was 2 people that are supposed to be truthers, which now I know are not. I mean, in my opinion, they're both clones, they're both controlled, and yet they're the most well-known, in the truth community. Now, it's interesting because someone was talking about Archaics, and I remember when Archaics first came on the scene, and I just had a weird feeling about him. I started watching him when he first started. I think it was almost 3 years ago. And it just, something about him just bugged me. And this is how it always is when they don't sit right with me. And I can't really put my finger on it. But see, I know that majority of the books and everything, it's all manufactured, just like they show us in Dark City. Again, a lot of these movies are true because all they have to do to limit their karma that they're going to endure after the fact is to put some kind of a warning, something out there that tells you what they're doing in terms of your etheric capabilities and what level of spiritual understanding. Again, if you don't believe that there's other types of beings here, you wouldn't go there to begin with. But that's why I believe they have the industrial medical complex in place to have us label things like psychopath, schizophrenia, depression, manic, sociopath, gives us some explanation for what we're seeing, when in fact that's not what we're seeing. But it's a diversion and keeps you looking in another direction. The medical industrial complex is such a big part of this place in terms of keeping Westworld going. I don't mean this to be an attack on him at all. In fact, I mentioned him in a video when he first came on, so it's got to be 2 years old. It's on another platform. When Archaics just started to, be known, and a lot of people were starting to talk about him. And there was just always something. First of all, I don't condemn anyone. I feel like he did his time, and I didn't like how people were constantly pointing out what he supposedly did, because I don't have the same respect for the justice system as most people do. I know that they lie more than most people. I know that the court system is not a level playing field. I know a lot, and that's a whole other discussion in and of itself. So I have no faith in it. So when you pull up something on the internet and say, this is what this person supposedly did, that means nothing to me. And you do it without talking to him first, all it did is tell me about the person that did that and not the person they're talking about. It shows me what you're about. and you're a clone, you're an order follower, you're something other than human, because humans don't do that. They're going to weigh all the facts. That's why the only thing that bothered me about him was that he said that he voted when he got out, and my understanding is that once you're a convicted felon that you can't vote. So I was wondering, and this is what I said on the video, that if that's the case. But he did his time, and just like I just said, I'm not going to reiterate it. I have no regard for the justice system, and it's worse now than ever, or the government, or any of it. It's all evil, maniacal. It's run by Satan, period. So, and it's all here because we're slaves. They're here to monitor us and keep us controlled. But anyway, that doesn't discount what he did, but I'm just not, I was more talking about the people that were calling him out, because he was starting to become known on YouTube, and so they wanted to throw him under the bus with that. And, you know, again, which just says more about them. So I always kind of come for the underdog. I don't trust people in authority, especially in this realm. So, but what did bother me about what he said is that he voted, and he also got the inoculations. And just listening to him talk, like most people, especially if they're clones, and most of the things that were around here are biometric robots. There's all kinds of things, and that's why I'm using Star Wars, because it always makes me think of the bar scene where they had all these different entities there, because that's where we're living, but they're just covered in a human sack, which makes it very confusing, which is supposed to. This place is all it is deception and lies. So that was the only thing that bothered me about Archaics. And I don't have faith in every book that's ever been put here, because I believe something more like Dark City, where they show every reset where they put all the books in place. And the only book I really think has a validity, and even then you have to really have the Holy Spirit to crack the code of it, is the Bible and other scriptures, because these are the script that they follow. They do give us something. It's like going into Beetlejuice. You get the handbook for hell to help you navigate this place. And then, of course, they're going to take that same handbook, and they're going to have all their institutions in place, Satan's institution run by clones, to teach a different doctrine, a different gospel, a different God spell. And this is all for control too. So anyway, those are the two things at that time that just bothered me about it. I could care less. I'm glad he's doing great. I'm glad that he's succeeding. He's a hard worker. He's trying to make the most of his life. He spent his time in prison reading and studying, and for all he knows, all these books are real, and the people that wrote them are real. There's something about, and I notice this more, and I'm not saying he is or isn't, but people that do not have the Holy Spirit or a connection to a real living God, they rely more on history to try to understand what's going on here. I don't know why that is. It's a good reference point, but you got to have a lot of other references in order to bring it into fruition. And then when you see, like, you're somebody that puts things out, and you see these people that call themselves spiritualists or whatever, that like, I agree with him on Billy Carson or whatever his name is. I can't remember his name. I watched one of his videos, and then I just watch how they steal other people's content all day long, and then they just reformat it and sell it. So I have no respect for him. And I was kind of glad, because some of the people that he calls out, I agree with. I don't watch him. I think I've watched 2 of his videos in the last 12 months, and not even in their entirety. But I look at memes more, and I'm always interested in where they get their topics, which I know where they get them. But anyway, that's it's an endless thing here, because clones got to have something to inspire them. It doesn't come from within. You see, it comes from without. It comes in a book. It comes from another person. It comes, and you know, it just is how it works. I get my inspiration from God, and of course what's going on in the world, but like I like to draw more correlation, like in 2020 when they were going out doing the census. They almost broke my door down, came back 3 times, sending it in the mail, trying to get me to fill out this census. And if you read in, is it 2nd or 1st Chronicles, same thing in the script, that Satan the king, demanded David go count all the people. So the same thing, and it came right before the plague. So, those are the things that interest me, because I like to see how what they're doing right now is coordinating with the script, and we're in Exodus right now. So we're getting very close to the end of this game, or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, someone I was listening to that I just found, that I'm very intrigued by, and I couldn't believe I've never seen their videos. This happened to 2 individuals I just found on YouTube. But I had been spending my time on that other platform whenever I put stuff up, because everything I'd ever try to do here would always be taken down. And I'm trying to do things in a different way, so maybe my stuff will stay. I'm just trying some different things. But anyway, with regard to Archaics, he was interesting to me because he just, like many people, comes across to me like something's missing. It's just there's something missing. It's not a whole person. Again, nothing wrong with the guy. I think he does a lot of good for people. But when he told me he voted and that he had the inoculations, that concerned me, because I know the inoculations change you. And I thought, well, that's probably it, because it's a changing process. And a lot of times when you get institutionalized for any reason, they can force these things on you. They can certainly take your DNA. And then they can take your DNA and they can program it. And they can impact you wirelessly. This is why if you're not cloaked in the Holy Spirit, this is a very, very dangerous place to be. And you want to stay as far away from any of that stuff as you can. But what I found interesting, it's like just weird how this works for me. I was watching one of his lives recently. I think it was within the last 2 months. And he said something so interesting. He said that... I remember, this is one thing that he said, he never dreams. And that I logged in my mind. I'd heard him say that. He never has dreams when he goes to sleep. And so that was very weird to me. I thought, that's not a human characteristic. That's not a human trait. And I just logged it. I didn't say anything about it. I didn't do anything with it. I still don't care. But when I just heard this other person that's been reporting on this kind of stuff and really breaking down all these other entities that live here, so that's one of the primary ways you can tell that it might be a clone, and I'm just going to say might be, is that they have no dreams. I dream extensively every night. I may not remember it all, but all the time. And I had huge dreams at the beginning of 2020 in terms of predictions. So doesn't dream, voted, has the inoculations. But when he said this, I was just like, oh my God, I'd never heard this in my entire life. And I'm way into adulthood. He said that he grows teeth, new teeth every month. I'm like, what? As an adult? Like, all I know is that you get a baby set of teeth and then you get your mature teeth, period. But he says it's very painful and he gets new teeth every month or so. His old teeth drop out and his new ones come in. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, that just kind of made the hair on my neck stand up. I've never heard about that. And I guess he had some medical term to explain it. But even this person I was listening to sounded a little questionable. Like, I wouldn't say he's a clone, but there's definitely something else going on there. There just might be a lot of medicine, a lot of, how does that happen? How can you grow teeth, new sets as an adult every month well into your 40s? I don't get it. So, but that was, for me, it was the not dreaming. That was really big, that stuck with me with him. And then just overall, it's just a vibe I get. And it doesn't matter. Whenever I look at him, look at his meme, listen to him talk, and when you kind of look at the certain circles we look at in terms of truth, you can see where people get their ideas about what to talk about. And they kind of run on the same timeline, if you will, the same theme. So he's, in my opinion, I'm like 88% sure he's a clone. 88% sure. And they're very good with structure. They're very good. Clones need to be a part of something. They're very, I don't know. And he really is kind of quasi-truth community, but not really. But he tries to break down the Bible and different stuff and put doubt in people's minds over certain things. And so it's kind of a quasi-truth thing. So you kind of look at it and you're like, You know, what is the point of this? And I believe, just like I said this a long time ago, that, or I say it all the time because I've worked in technology forever, is the things that get promoted on YouTube, and I don't care if they have to do with the truth, but if you are pushing forward anything in their agenda here and participating in it, they will elevate you. And because you're not going to throw any dirt on, you know, the machine. Because there's a machine in place here. This is the Matrix, and there's extras, there's backdrop characters, there's clones, there's empty seaters, there's synthetics. I mean, there's all this stuff going on. Tons of clones. They've been cloning for millions of years. And in essence, we're clones. You know, even if you come out of your mother's womb, it's just a different way you've been. I mean, they're putting wombs on men now. I mean, it's just endless, I guess. The thing, that's why, for me, the only way that I denote differences in people is if they have the Holy Spirit. Like I've gone through my life, I've met lots and lots of people, and I've really met no more than one or two that have the Holy Spirit. So the humans here are far and few between. And, you know, there could be maybe only 144,000. But 144, like I did that video a long time ago, breaks down to 9. And I did this whole breakdown with Revelation 21. And all the gates and the walls, they all reduce to 9. And 9 is the number of completion. Not ending, but completion, like completion of a cycle. And I believe that could even represent you completing 6 cycles in this game or this realm. But now we're at the hardest part. And again, I mean nothing bad against archaics. There just has to be a time where we can talk about this, that you, just like in Star Wars, where someone walks into the bar and they go, oh, you're one of those. See, here it's a mystery and it's all covered up and cloaked in filthy garments. And I shouldn't even say filthy, but dirty garments. And this is how the Bible talks about the covering, the sack is the garment. And the reason it's called that is because it's hidden. When we get to a point where it's no longer hidden, it's not a bad thing. There's lots of nice clones. There's more clones in this place than there is humans. The humans are the novelty. Whether they do it in a movie or a sitcom or on the news or in the newspaper, it doesn't matter. But it does diminish some of the karma that they have to repay. That's why there's a lot of truth in the movies. The movies are real, the news is fake. I've always said that. I saw that early on, that that's the case. The Matrix is telling us exactly what's going on here. And when I saw it the first time, there's no way I would have thought that. But that was really the beginning when I really first started to wake up, when that movie came out. When was that? I think it was like 2000, 2001, or even 1999. I can't remember now, but yeah, it's and then so what was I talking about? Okay, so you see all these people that are being gang stalked. See, I was shown in the spirit that only the people that have the Holy Spirit are gang stalked. And you always wore your whole life, but there might have been a time before you woke up, and then once you wake up, then you're aware of it. But you've always been watched and followed and had people positioned in certain areas to keep an eye on you. Because you're like the star of the game. Everything else is an extra, a backdrop character. So you can't get mad at them, you know? They need leadership, and they even call them their leaders. When essentially, if you really believed in this government nonsense, they're supposed to be representatives of the people. But if you're somebody that doesn't have a center, and you're as nice as you can be because you're an order follower, right? You're congenial, you do what you're told, you go to work every day, you pay your taxes, you're a cog in the wheel. But you're not the real prize for the ones that run this game. They're not interested in you. You're predictable. They know what you're going to do. They're curious about what we're going to do, how we're going to stand up to them, how we're going to be defiant, and what kind of boot they're going to put on our neck. What kind of smear campaigns are they going to do about us? How are they going to ruin our lives? How are they, they're going to take our children. They're going to sell our children. They're going to try to get us fired from our jobs. They're going to cause all kinds of accidents and inexplicable things to happen to us. And then we're supposed to be able to tolerate it and keep going. And a lot of us do. It's funny because I sometimes think about telling certain things on my videos and then I immediately go, no, why? There's nobody that cares and nobody cares. Like, that's the biggest thing. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about you. And this is how they go a lot. It's so much easier if you're a clone in this environment, in this world. But the best thing you can have is knowledge, just like the Messiah said. If you have knowledge and you know you're surrounded by synthetics and biorobots and clones, then you have an easier time, because really the only thing you need to do now is kind of determine how you want to navigate your life and how much interaction you want to have or can tolerate with them. That's really what it is. You're never going to be elevated to any level of control, or you're not going to be put up in the hierarchies. I can't tell you all the corporations I worked in, and I was never offered the position that I was totally worthy of and had demonstrated capability for. And because that's not what you get here when you come into this game. Unless, and this in my opinion would be the ultimate worst, you sell out to one of the agencies to try to bamboozle and trap your fellow man, which you're really a fellow man of because you actually have a spirit of God, or you have that God spark. Maybe you haven't developed that relationship with God because he doesn't put himself on you. He makes a pathway, he makes a doorway, and he's available. But he's not going to ever push himself on you. He's not like Satan. Satan has to control and put you in chains. That's why we're put in chains the minute we come here. But see, a clone can't see that. All of us that didn't even know it, we knew that there was always problems with this place. Like, why do you need a number? Who did they say I am? See, that's what the Messiah was demonstrating. Who do they say I am? And see, Peter knew because he was told by the Holy Spirit. And that's why he said, you're blessed, Peter, because no man told you who I was, but the Father in heaven told you. That's why I get downloads from the Father, and other people do too. Clones don't. They need these vessels for these demons to occupy. And this is why the world is so evil right now, because there's an influx of meat suits on the planet that are filled with demonic entities. So when you sit around, like a lot of these, I don't know, I think if you're a man, like nothing turns me off more than listening to these people just bitch about how awful this place is. When I think what you're going to find out is that you chose to be here. You chose to be here, or you have a karma contract that you have to fulfill. Because you're in hell. You did something to deserve to come here. I did something to deserve to come here, and I have to overcome it. And like I was shown that this, I've been here before, I've done this a few times, and I'm on my last loop. So I believe it gets the hardest at this point. But one of the things I found interesting is that clones don't have rhythm. You know, I've been a dancer my whole life, and I had an aerobic fitness center I started. I always taught aerobics because I love music, love dance. And I opened my first aerobic fitness center when I was 19. And again, just love music, love dance. They can't dance. So if you're ever with somebody and they go, oh, I can't dance, I can't, you know, do any of that, that's an indication you might want to look closer at them if they can't move to music. Because this is something that they can't really accomplish with the Petri dish people. You know, that's a symbiotic connection to the rhythm of the ether. You know, they operate on one frequency, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And this is why they're so regimental. This is why they make great soldiers. They make great religious group leaders. And, you know, people that just do the same kind of dogma day in, day out, day in, day out. Again, can be very nice people. They can also be very evil. You know, they go through their whole lives, they don't cause anyone any problem. Go to work, go home, go to church, go to work, wash, rinse, repeat, wash, rinse, you know, just a good slave in the system. Pay their extortion fees, do it all. Never question anything. Always look up. They're always looking up to their leaders. They're not representatives to them. They're leaders. They tell them, they put all their faith and trust in someone else. When what we're called to do as humans is to make ourselves the leader. Because we're one with the Father. This is why they can't understand the Bible. They can't understand these higher faculties of and I don't mean it to be insulting. I'm just saying it is what it is. They can't understand what Christ was trying to tell you. That me and my Father are one. Saying, you see me, I'm right here, but the Father resides in me in spirit. So whatever you say to me, you're saying to the Father. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. He's trying to explain this to these creatures that can't understand it. That's why they're so in the world, and they want the best seats in the world. They want the best clothes. They want the best everything that's worldly, because they don't comprehend spiritual things. It's not their fault. They just can't. They were created by something else. They were created by the Father of this world. John 8:44. I think that's all for now. Have a good day, and I'll be back again soon. I mean, God willing. Tomorrow's the 5th, so we'll see what happens. It's just going to be interesting no matter what happens. I'm listening to people that are really scrambling, that are really into crypto and stuff, and they're saying there's nothing that's going to collapse. These people have no idea what's going on at all with the money. See, crypto, Monero, all these different Bitcoins, if you will, are all based on the dollar. Like, that's how you come to determine the amount of money that crypto's worth, right? It's worth, what, 3,000? I don't even know. I don't follow it. But Monero is worth, say, what, $70,000? So again, you have to understand it's all based on the reserve currency up until this point that's been the dollar. So how does that affect Bitcoin when the reserve currency, the dollar, crashes? See, they don't understand. Most people don't. Again, that's probably a clone. They put all their faith and trust in this system. They don't think it's going to crash. BRICS is already operating in the background. It has been for a long time. They never believe anyone lies either. They have all their faith in the world. That's all they can do. They don't have clairvoyance, telepathy, intuition, discernment. They don't have these capabilities, even if they say they do. If they don't understand the dollar has already crashed, and it's just a matter of turning the system off for 3 days so that the whole thing can reset It's like a giant reset switch. I worked in computers and did copiers and stuff for a long time too. And the first thing when someone has a problem, even if you have a problem with your computer and it seizes up, right, it just freezes, what is the first thing you do? You turn it off and turn it back on, right? And then it resets the whole system. That's what's got to take place to cancel out the debt clock. See, somebody that's trying to sell you Monero and different cryptocurrencies doesn't necessarily know these things because they rely on the fact that it's all based on the dollar reserve currency. So how are they going to understand how it works when the dollar's gone? It doesn't. It cancels that out too. Now the reserve currency, the reserve token unit that I don't want to get too, I'm going to do another video and get more technical on that. But again, you know, they could do this tomorrow. For me, in my opinion, it's their perfect timing. But again, this might only be my game, and the fact that I brought it up now, they're not going to do it. Darn it, I should have kept my mouth shut. It's going to cause a lot of mayhem because like these people don't even understand it. So think about it. If you're someone that's invested everything you have into cryptocurrency and the dollar is announced now that it's gone and BRICS is now in place, the debt clock has been reset, all title of assets and property transferred to the government, just like they always have, but now it's just out in the open. They've always owned everything because you can't buy anything with debt. You've been paying for your houses, your automobiles, everything. I'll put that video on here again. That had the one that has the debt clock on it. It'll help you understand how the money is worked up until this point that they're going to do the reset and cancel out the dollar. So you don't even own anything, even if you have the title to it, because you can't pay for anything with debt. And then it's just going to be really interesting how everything proceeds after that. But see, the world currency to this point has been the dollar, the reserve currency. So you have to understand that that's no longer. And they have to reset the clock, and a lot of us believe it's going to be before 2025. And with everything going on, the fact that, you know, the White House has been closed ever since Jan 6th, nobody works there. They used that with giant psyop to you know, get a bunch of fences put up around it so that they could say that's the reason why nobody goes there. But they've been out of business since 1999. Everything you see is just a show on TV. And that's why it's just funny to listen to. It's like when all this attention is put over there, it lets all this other stuff go on in the background. All this human trafficking, all of these cloning centers, all this other stuff, organ harvesting, and then the money. The money is the biggest thing. The money changes everything. Because everything that's done here is about the money. It's all about the money. And we come here, the Bible is actually about money. And when it talks about being saved, that's talking about money as well. But the church has used this in another way to control the clones. And this is why they believe it and they can't see beyond it. They can't crack the code of the Bible. It's not their fault. It doesn't work for them anyway. They don't have eternal life. They're grounded to this realm, to this plane. This is where they're from, and they're not going any further. They're not ascending out of here. They might loop back in. I don't know really how it works, because if you don't have a soul, see, again, the way I see it is if you have a mind, you have a soul. And then if you have a soul, I believe you could ask the Creator for a spirit. But I don't know. I mean, he looked at those guys with the robes on, and he said that your father, you have a different father. He has no truth in him. And see, Satan was a created being too. I mean, we're all created to some extent. It's just how and how we're brought into this simulation that really changes everything and determines what you're going to be. But if you have the Spirit of God, you're an immortal. This is why they do all the cartoons and the movies called the Immortals. Because they're not. That's why it's a fantasy to them. That's why they can't understand it. A clone doesn't understand when I tell them I'm immortal. I never die. And we're at the end of this simulation. And it's going to be the hardest now. But everybody that has been pretty much in touch, in my opinion, has all said it's over in 2025. I don't know if that has to do with the pole shift, but you know, a lot of stuff, of course, is going on with the weather, but it's really, you know, the medicine, and then that's really where my attention's been. And when they said it was safe and effective, I was shown a long time ago it's safe for them, but it's effective for the real human. You see? And that's why so many people went and got it, because they're not human.